This is Maximus.
Well, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that President Trump is so frustrated by delays on Boeing's work to deliver his pride and joy, a twin set of new Air Force Ones, that Donald Trump has commissioned the smaller defense contractor L3 Harris to ready an interim presidential plane by year's end. According to the usual, quote, unnamed sources, the U.S. government has secretly commissioned defense contractor Harris to overhaul a Boeing 747, formerly used by the Qatari government. The Melbourne, Florida-based Harris company is tasked with retrofitting the plane with certain specialized systems to transform the luxury aircraft into a presidential jet. Trump, fresh off the heels of a meeting with Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg, who came to the Oval Office in April to brief the president on the progress of the new Air Force One. After that meeting, Trump was said to be growing ever more impatient, so he wants his new Qatari ride pimped out and ready to go by this fall. And seriously, who could blame him? I mean, this has been on his bucket list since his first term in 2016. As you may recall, in 2016, shortly after his election, then-President Donald Trump turned his attention to one of the president's most iconic symbols, as well as perks, that of course being Air Force One. The current Air Force One jets, designated VC-25A, have been in service since the administration of George H.W. Bush. He, of course, is the Bush that came after Reagan. But even before Trump's inauguration in January, the incoming administration and senior Air Force officials had grown frustrated with Boeing's handling of the Air Force One replacement project. At one point, they even considered canceling Boeing's contract entirely. Legal action against the company was even quietly discussed. However, in 2016, President Trump made it a priority to replace the aging jets. He negotiated a $3.9 billion deal with Boeing to build two new Air Force One aircraft based on the 747-8 model. You may recall his involvement was highly public at the time. He may have even mentioned a time or two about negotiating the price himself, and famously designed a new color scheme also by himself, one that replaced the traditional sky blue with a darker, more patriotic red, white, and blue palette. However, Boeing engineers later warned that the darker paint job could increase the plane's heat signature and interfere with sensitive electronics, potentially requiring expensive modifications. The Biden administration, at the time, later rejected that paint scheme altogether. But despite Trump's enthusiasm, the project quickly hit turbulence. Boeing encountered numerous setbacks, supplier issues, engineering flaws, and significant manufacturing delays. One major issue involved structural problems in the aircraft's fuselage, including complications around newly cut door openings. Boeing also struggled to meet stringent FAA certification requirements and maintain security credentials for workers on this highly classified program. And it was also at this time that Elon Musk, who had been in contact with Trump even before his inauguration, took a personal interest in the project. He began calling Boeing executives, visiting the San Antonio facility where the jets were being modified, and urging the company to streamline the work. Elon Musk, who was overseeing the project for a while, pushed Boeing to cut unnecessary requirements imposed by the Air Force and the White House, which he believed were slowing down the project. But it was around November 2024, Boeing privately admitted that it might not be able to deliver the new planes until 2035, a full decade away. This timeline meant that President Trump, should he win re-election, which he did of course, likely wouldn't get to fly on the planes he helped order. So now a frustrated second-term President Trump began exploring alternatives. And this is where the Qatari 747 comes in. It was in February that he toured a Boeing 747 once owned by the Qatari government in West Palm Beach, Florida. The luxury configured jet had potential, and Trump hinted publicly he might purchase a new plane, saying at the time he was not happy with Boeing. So behind the scenes, the U.S. government had already begun working on their backup plan. The Air Force secretly commissioned L3 Harris Technologies, a smaller, fast-growing defense contractor based in Melbourne, Florida, to retrofit the Qatari 747 into an interim presidential aircraft. L3 Harris, which had previously worked with Boeing on communication systems for the new Air Force One, was tasked with installing specialized equipment to upgrade the jet for presidential use. On April 18, Boeing's CEO visited the Oval Office and discussed the status of the official replacement planes. But as I said, by then, Trump's patience had worn thin. He wanted an alternative he could use during his second term, an aircraft that would complement the existing VC-25As, both of which were increasingly prone to downtime for maintenance. For years, the Air Force had quietly advocated for a third jet to act as a backup when one of the existing planes was unavailable. Now President Trump's demand for an interim aircraft aligned with their long-term goal. Still, building a fully functional substitute in such short order proposed major challenges. Experts like Andrew Hunter, who served as the Air Force's acquisition chief during the Biden administration, warned that meaningful modifications would be limited by the timeline. Yeah, you could do some paint and some communication upgrades, he said, but it would be hard to do much beyond that. L3 Harris now faces a formidable task of transforming a luxury Qatari jet into a plane worthy of the call sign Air Force One. It probably won't match the security capabilities of the current VC-25As, but it may serve as a viable stopgap. Meanwhile, Boeing continues to work years behind schedule and billions of dollars over budget on the aircraft Trump once proudly claimed he had secured for less. Now fearing he may never sit in their presidential suite, well, that ain't gonna fly. And not only that, but Trump wants his new secret Air Force One to be up in the air by this fall of 2025. So how about that? Trump wants his new plane and he wants it now. Well, I can't blame him. Come on. It's Air Force One. It's the ride of all rides. What do you think? Let me know down below.